The galaxy trembled with anticipation as the Zanari Dominion's broadcast spread to every corner of known space. General Zelrath, his towering form a symbol of strength and conquest, stood before a holographic council of alien leaders. His voice boomed with disdain. Humans, cowards hiding behind fragile technology and numbers. A species unworthy of the stars. I, General Zelrath, challenge you. Prove your worth if you dare. His words carried an undeniable finality. The terms were simple, a duel between the Zanari's mightiest warrior and humanity's chosen champion. If humanity refused or failed, their colonies, their dreams of expansion, their very existence would become a footnote in the annals of Zanari conquest. The Zanari relished the opportunity to assert dominance, confident no human could match their elite. The challenge rippled through Earth's leadership like a tidal wave. In a conference room deep within a fortified bunker, Earth's top officials gathered in a heated debate. "We can't afford to lose this," one general said, his voice tense. "If we show weakness, it's over. We need to send a battalion, or better yet, one of our advanced combat mechs." Another interjected, his tone desperate. The room fell silent as a figure at the back stepped forward. Sergeant Maeve Carter, a name few in the room even recognized. No cybernetic enhancements. No legendary war record. She wasn't a decorated hero. Just a soldier, one of thousands. "Send me," she said simply. The council erupted in disbelief. "This is a duel for humanity's survival, Sergeant. What makes you think you can win?" one official demanded. Maeve stood firm, her gaze unwavering. "One soldier. One fight. That's all we need. Let me show them what it means to be human." After hours of deliberation and no better alternative, Earth's leaders agreed. When the decision was broadcast, the galaxy reacted with collective shock and amusement. The idea of a lone human soldier, standing against the Zanari's most formidable warrior, was a joke to most. Commentators across alien networks mocked humanity's arrogance, or desperation. But Maeve wasn't deterred. As her small transport ship approached Zanari Prime, the contrast couldn't have been clearer. The Zanari's capital was a fortress planet, its skies darkened by warships, its surface marked with towering spires of alien architecture. The ship docked, and Maeve stepped into the landing bay, dwarfed by the massive arena looming in the distance. The Zanari greeted her with a mix of disdain and curiosity. She was escorted to her quarters by 2 guards, their amused expressions barely hidden. "This is what humanity sends," one of them sneered. Maeve didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her presence alone carried a quiet resolve that made the mockery feel hollow. The announcement of the duel's participants spread quickly. The Zanari champion was revealed, Kralvok, a towering beast of muscle and bioarmor. Stories of his victories were legend. He had decimated entire battalions, crushed advanced war machines, and emerged unscathed. Against him, humanity's choice seemed laughable. As the day of the duel approached, Maeve prepared in silence. Her quarters were Spartan, the only adornment a small hollow picture of her family back on Earth. She studied the Zanari physiology, memorized their combat patterns, and replayed recordings of Kralvok's previous battles. She wasn't planning to fight him on his terms. That would be suicide. Instead, she focused on what humans did best: adapting, thinking, surviving. The morning of the duel arrived. The arena was a coliseum of unimaginable scale, filled with roaring Zanari spectators. Hollow screens broadcast the event across the galaxy. In one corner, Kralvok stood, his presence alone enough to send shivers down the spines of even seasoned warriors. In the other corner, Maeve Carter, a solitary figure clad in standard human combat armor, her rifle slung across her back. As she stepped into the arena, the noise from the crowd was deafening. Boos, laughter, jeers, all aimed at her. She ignored them. Her focus was unshakable. The announcer, a Zanari with a flair for drama, amplified the crowd's energy. "Behold, the so-called champion of humanity! A lone soldier, standing against the might of Kralvok. Will she last even a minute?" Maeve's lips twitched into a faint smile. Let them laugh. It wouldn't matter soon. General Zelrath watched from his throne high above the arena, his expression a mix of amusement and contempt. "This will be over quickly," he said to his advisors. "A lesson for the galaxy to never overestimate humanity." As the signal to begin was given, Maeve exhaled slowly. The time for talk was over. The world would see what humanity was truly made of. The arena was alive with anticipation, the roar of the crowd echoing like a thunderstorm across the battlefield. Kralvok, the Zanari champion, strode forward with calculated confidence, his bioarmor gleaming under the harsh lights. He towered over Maeve, his plasma-forged blade humming ominously. To the spectators, the outcome seemed inevitable. The announcer's voice boomed over the chaos, proclaiming the start of the duel. Maeve remained still, her breathing steady, her eyes locked onto her opponent. She didn't move to attack, nor did she fall into a defensive stance. Her stillness seemed almost disrespectful to the towering warrior in front of her, provoking a deep, guttural laugh from Kralvok. He lunged forward, his blade slashing through the air with the power to cleave through steel. Maeve sidestepped, the attack missing her by a hair's breadth. She didn't retaliate, didn't counter. She simply moved, her steps fluid and deliberate. Kralvok snarled, swinging again, faster and more aggressively. Again, she evaded, her movements precise, her focus unshakable. The crowd's jeers turned to murmurs of confusion. What was this human doing? Kralvok's strikes grew faster, each blow carving chunks from the arena floor. He roared, frustrated by Maeve's refusal to engage directly. She remained calm, circling him like a predator assessing its prey. Her movements weren't random, they were calculated, deliberate. She was studying him, his range, his patterns, his weaknesses. Then she struck. A single, precise shot from her rifle hit one of the joints in his bioarmor. It wasn't enough to cause serious damage, but it was a reminder that her patience wasn't passivity. Kralvok growled, his pride wounded more than his body. He charged again, this time with reckless abandon, his massive blade sweeping wide. Maeve dove forward, rolling beneath the arc of his swing. As she came up, she fired another shot, this time hitting a weak point in his leg. Kralvok stumbled slightly but recovered quickly, his anger now palpable. The crowd erupted, the energy shifting from mockery to surprise. This wasn't the easy victory they had anticipated. For every strike Kralvok attempted, Maeve responded with precision. She didn't meet his strength head-on, she exploited his overconfidence, his reliance on brute force. Her movements were like a dance, each step designed to frustrate and exhaust her opponent. Bit by bit, she was dismantling him, not with power, but with patience and ingenuity. Kralvok's attacks became wilder, less disciplined. His frustration was evident, his roars echoing through the arena as Maeve continued to evade him. She struck again, another carefully aimed shot piercing a vulnerable spot in his armor. This time, he faltered visibly, his massive form slowing as fatigue began to take its toll. Maeve wasn't just fighting him, she was outlasting him, forcing him to expend his energy while conserving her own. The crowd's tone shifted again, their mockery replaced with curiosity and grudging respect. They had expected a slaughter, but this human was proving to be something entirely different. General Zelrath leaned forward in his seat, his amusement giving way to something closer to interest. This was no ordinary duel. This was a demonstration of something far more dangerous than raw strength, intelligence. Maeve's rifle clicked as she reloaded, her movements smooth and efficient. Kralvok charged once more, his blade raised high. But this time, Maeve didn't retreat. She stood her ground, waiting until the last possible moment before sidestepping and firing at point-blank range. The shot struck the joint in his shoulder, and his massive weapon clattered to the ground. For the first time, the arena fell silent. Kralvok stared at his empty hands, his expression a mix of shock and fury. He lunged at Maeve, his clothes bared, but she was faster. She ducked beneath his swing, delivering a calculated strike to the back of his knee. He collapsed onto one leg, his towering form brought low by a single, seemingly insignificant human. Maeve didn't press her advantage immediately. She stepped back, giving Kralvok room to rise. But he didn't. He was breathing heavily now, his movements sluggish. Maeve's strategy had worked. She hadn't just fought him, she had outlasted him, outthought him. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a wave of disbelief washing over the arena. Kralvok growled, his pride refusing to let him admit defeat. He swung again, a desperate, clumsy attack that Maeve easily avoided. She struck one final time, her blade slicing cleanly through the weakened armor on his chest. It wasn't a fatal blow, but it was decisive. Kralvok fell to the ground, his massive frame heaving with exhaustion. Maeve stood over him, her weapon lowered. She didn't deliver the killing blow. Instead, she turned to the crowd, her voice steady, calm. "Is this what you call strength?" she asked, her words cutting through the stunned silence. "Brute force without thought? Power without purpose? Humanity's strength is something you'll never understand." The crowd erupted into a mixture of cheers and shouts, their respect for Maeve undeniable. General Zelrath watched from his throne, his expression unreadable. This duel was no longer a simple contest of warriors. It was a statement, a demonstration of what humanity was capable of. Maeve Carter had done more than survive. She had proven that humans weren't cowards. They were something far more dangerous. Kralvok struggled to his knees, his breathing ragged, his pride shattered. The crowd's roar was a chaotic blend of disbelief, frustration, and growing admiration for the human soldier who had dared to defy expectations. Maeve stood a few paces away, her posture relaxed but her focus unbroken. She wasn't celebrating, she wasn't mocking. She was waiting, watching for Kralvok's next move. The Zanari warrior let out a guttural roar, a final act of defiance. His bioarmor hummed with energy as he activated its overdrive mode, a last resort that channeled every remaining ounce of power into a frenzied assault. The air crackled with heat as the ground beneath him scorched. He charged, faster than before, his massive fist crashing down with enough force to pulverize stone. Maeve didn't panic. She moved with calculated precision, each step placing her just out of reach. His attacks were more destructive but less controlled, leaving him vulnerable. She baited him into overextending, dodging his strikes and forcing him to expend his energy even faster. Every swing was a gamble he couldn't afford, and every miss was a victory for her. The arena was no longer just a battleground, it was a trap. Maeve had studied its layout, its structure, and now she used it to her advantage. She led Kralvok into positions where his massive size worked against him. Low barriers and uneven terrain forced him to adjust his footing constantly, each movement draining him further. She fired another precise shot, striking a critical joint in his armor. Sparks flew as the armor faltered, exposing more of his vulnerable flesh. Kralvok was relentless, but Maeve was relentless in her own way. She wasn't just fighting him, she was dismantling him, piece by piece, both physically and mentally. His roars became less intimidating, more desperate. His movements slowed, his strikes becoming sloppy. She was turning his strength into his weakness, his pride into his downfall. As Kralvok raised his arms for a devastating blow, Maeve moved in close. It was a risky maneuver, but it was exactly what he wouldn't expect. Before he could react, she planted a small explosive device on the back of his armor and rolled away just as it detonated. The blast wasn't enough to kill him, but it sent him sprawling, his armor now cracked and smoldering. The crowd gasped as the mighty warrior lay vulnerable, his once imposing figure reduced to a struggling shadow of itself. Maeve approached cautiously, her weapon ready but not raised. Kralvok managed to push himself up onto one knee, his gaze filled with fury and disbelief. "Why do you hesitate?" he snarled, his voice thick with pain. "Finish it! Prove your strength!" Maeve tilted her head slightly, her voice calm but firm. "Strength isn't just about destruction. It's about knowing when to stop." Her words echoed through the arena, silencing the crowd. Even Kralvok paused, his expression shifting from rage to something closer to confusion. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever fought him like this. He had expected a contest of brute force, but Maeve had given him something entirely different, something he couldn't understand. General Zelrath watched from above, his smug confidence replaced by a simmering frustration. This wasn't how the duel was supposed to end. A Zanari warrior didn't lose, and they certainly weren't spared. His advisors murmured nervously, unsure of how to interpret this unexpected turn. Zelrath's voice cut through their whispers. "She mocks us," he said, his tone icy. "This is not victory. This is humiliation." But the crowd thought differently. The Zanari were a proud, warlike people, but they respected strength in all its forms. And what they saw now was undeniable. Maeve Carter had faced their greatest warrior, and had not only survived but outsmarted him. She had won, not with brute force but with skill, patience, and intelligence. Slowly, the cheers began. At first, scattered and uncertain, but growing louder and more unified with each passing moment. Maeve stepped back, lowering her weapon. Kralvox slumped to the ground, defeated but alive. She turned to face the crowd, her voice rising above their growing applause. "Strength isn't just about overpowering your enemy. It's about standing firm when the odds are against you. It's about using your mind, your heart, and your resolve. Humanity doesn't need to prove its strength. We already have." Her words carried weight, resonating not just with the Zanari but with the entire galaxy watching. For a moment, there was silence. Then the crowd erupted into a deafening roar, their cheers shaking the very foundation of the arena. They hadn't just witnessed a duel, they had witnessed something far more profound. A lesson, a challenge to their understanding of what it meant to be strong. General Zelrath rose from his throne, his expression dark but composed. He raised a hand, and the crowd quieted instantly. His voice boomed across the arena. "You have proven your point, human. But do not mistake this for mercy. You have earned our respect, but respect is not the same as peace." Maeve met his gaze, her expression unyielding. She didn't need to respond. The victory wasn't just hers, it was humanity's, and it spoke louder than any words ever could. The arena was still reverberating with the echoes of the crowd's cheers as Maeve Carter exited the battlefield. Her steps were steady, her posture unassuming, yet she carried the weight of a moment that had reshaped humanity's place in the galaxy. The Zanari, once certain of their superiority, had been forced to confront a truth they could no longer deny: strength was not confined to physical might. In the quiet corridors leading away from the arena, Maeve passed rows of Zanari soldiers and spectators. Some averted their gaze, their pride too wounded to meet her eyes. Others nodded subtly, a gesture of respect that transcended words. Maeve accepted it all in silence. She hadn't fought for glory, nor for admiration. Her purpose had been survival, hers and humanity's. Back in the Zanari council chamber, General Zelrath sat brooding, his advisors whispering nervously around him. The defeat, though not fatal to the Zanari's reputation, had shattered their image of unassailable dominance. Zelrath's voice cut through the murmurs. "This changes nothing. The Dominion does not bow. One victory does not make them our equals." An advisor hesitated before replying. "But the people, General. They saw the human strength. To ignore this risks rebellion. Even now, the whispers are spreading. They respect her." Zelrath's fist slammed onto the arm of his throne. "Respect does not grant them dominion over us. We remain supreme." Yet even he couldn't ignore the shifting tide. His eyes darkened as he realized that the duel had become more than a fight. It was a symbol of defiance, a crack in the foundation of the Zanari's perceived invincibility. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news of Maeve's victory spread like wildfire. Across every colony, every station, and every city, her name became a rallying cry. Humanity, often underestimated by its galactic neighbors, had proven its resilience and ingenuity. Leaders around the world held impromptu celebrations, and messages of congratulations poured in from newfound allies who saw in humanity a strength that mirrored their own struggles. Maeve's return to Earth was subdued by her request. She didn't want parades or grand speeches. As her transport landed, she was met by a small delegation of officials and a handful of reporters. Her expression remained calm, her voice measured as she addressed the media. This wasn't about me. This was about all of us. Humanity doesn't thrive because we're the strongest. We thrive because we're determined. Because we endure. A reporter pressed, asking, "What do you say to those who now call you humanity's greatest warrior?" Maeve's response was simple. "I'm just a soldier. And like every soldier, I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. This victory belongs to humanity, not to me." Her humility only amplified the impact of her words. Across the galaxy, alien species debated the implications of her victory. Some saw her as a beacon of hope, proof that the weak could overcome the strong through sheer will and strategy. Others viewed her as a warning, a reminder that even seemingly insignificant species could rise to challenge the status quo. On Zenari Prime, the people's perception of humanity began to shift. Conversations in market squares and military barracks reflected a growing respect for the humans. Kralvok himself, recovering from his wounds, spoke publicly for the first time since the duel. "I fought her," he said, his voice tinged with both bitterness and admiration. "I underestimated her. We all did. That is a mistake we will not make again." The statement carried weight, rippling through Zenari society. Maeve's actions hadn't just earned humanity a temporary reprieve, they had planted seeds of doubt in the Zenari's long-held belief in their absolute superiority. Respect, though grudging, was taking root. In the broader galaxy, alliances began to shift. Species once wary of humanity now saw them as potential allies. Ambassadors reached out, seeking diplomatic ties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. The duel had not only safeguarded humanity's survival but also elevated its standing in the intergalactic community. Back on Earth, Maeve returned to her quiet life. She declined interviews, turned down promotions, and refused to capitalize on her newfound fame. For her, the duel had been a duty, not an opportunity for personal gain. Yet, her actions inspired countless others. Young recruits joined Earth's defense forces in droves, citing Maeve as their inspiration. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop new technologies, determined to ensure humanity would never again face such odds unprepared. One evening, as Maeve sat alone in her modest home, a message arrived. It was from Kralvok. His voice, though still gruff, carried an unfamiliar tone of respect. "You fought well, human. Better than I imagined. Perhaps one day, we will fight again, not as enemies, but as equals." Maeve listened in silence, a faint smile touching her lips. She didn't reply, but the message lingered in her mind. The duel had ended, but its impact would reverberate for years to come. Humanity had proven itself not just to the Zenari, but to the galaxy at large. They had shown that courage, strategy, and resilience could defy even the most overwhelming odds. As the stars glittered outside her window, Maeve allowed herself a rare moment of pride, not for her own achievements, but for what humanity had accomplished together. The message was clear: humanity was here to stay. And no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them with the same resolve that had carried her through that arena. One soldier had stood alone, but in her victory, she had carried the strength of an entire species.